Hey guys, I have 3 things that I think help me win NaNoWriMo each year, and so I'm excited to share them with you today. If you've never done Nano before, I think these tips are going to be a game changer for you, but even if you have done Nano before, I really think they're going to inspire you and give you some new ideas for what you can implement this year to win NaNoWriMo. I've done NaNoWriMo the last 3 years, and I've done all the little camp nanos in between as well, and so I've actually written in that time frame 6 full-length novels, not even counting the nonfiction and other stuff that I write on the side. And so I did the math, you guys. Those 6 novels alone were over 450,000 words. So I've written probably closer to 500,000 words counting my nonfiction. And that works out to roughly 150,000 words a year. And I am not a fast writer by any means, you guys. I am really not. And I have done NaNoWriMo while working a full-time job. So I am here to tell you it is completely possible and you can do this. Before I share these 3 tips, I have an entire series of NaNoWriMo videos. I will link them in the description box below because I have videos on things like world building, rewards, your writing routine, time management, and other writing hacks all related to NaNoWriMo that can help you and probably help you other times of the year too if you want just inspiration, motivation, or maybe just a little bit of procrastination. Make sure you stay tuned till the end, guys, because I have a fun surprise to share with you that's going to help you win NaNoWriMo. But let's dive into the tips. Number 1 is having a plan. And I don't mean that you have to be a plotter, you guys. You don't have to know exactly where your novel is going, but I mean more of a plan for your writing as a whole. So like, when are you going to write? How often are you going to write? How many words are you going to write each day? And how long is it going to take you total to get to the end of your novel? Like, to actually know what you need to do is going to help you get there. To me, having a plan is like having a roadmap. So you're not going to like go to California and just like take off down a road and hope that you get there, because you could end up on the East Coast instead of the West Coast. But if you are like, okay, I'm going to California, so I'm going to plot out like kind of like my mile markers and like where I'm going to stop along the way, and I'm going to make sure that I'm actually heading in that direction. All of that is going to help you be more successful on both a trip and in writing your novel. Some of the things that I think are really helpful to know is the genre, so you know what the heck you're writing, the word count that you're aiming for so that you can actually figure out how much you need to write each day. It doesn't have to be the word count that you end on. You don't have to be like, oh, I need to add 20 more words to meet my goal. That's not the idea, but it's like if you know what you're aiming for, again, you know what you need to do to get there. You know the mile markers. So like NaNoWriMo is 50,000 words. So if you're like, okay, that's how much I want to write this month, then they have their breakdown for you that it's 1,667 words a day. But if you've ever done NaNoWriMo before, then you know that almost nobody actually writes every single day of the month, because if you do that, you're going to get really burnt out. And so maybe you're like, I'm going to take the weekends off, and so I actually only have this many days. Maybe you want to plan time off for family events or holidays like, oh, I don't know, Thanksgiving and other things that you might want to do that you'll be like, yeah, I'm definitely not writing that day. And once you're able to plan the days that you're going to write and actually see how many you have in the month to actually write, then you can plan how many words to write each day to actually meet your goal. For example, say you have a crazy busy month and you're only able to write 20 days out of the month, and you still want to reach 50,000 words, then you would have to write 2,500 words every day that you write. Or let's take this outside of NaNoWriMo, and let's say that you want to write 50,000 words and you know that you only want to write about 500 words a day because you don't want to push yourself, and that's a good amount for you when you sit down to write. That means you'll need about 100 days to write a 50,000 word novel. So you can see how figuring out the big picture goal can help you figure out your daily goals and how much you need to do so that you don't get to, you know, November 28th and you're like, I still have 40,000 words to write. That's not gonna happen. A couple other things I like to plan are what times of day I'm going to write, or maybe multiple times of day that I'm going to write, because honestly that's less pressure. If you have smaller chunks that you have to get done, it doesn't feel as overwhelming. So sometimes I like to plan that. And I like to plan, let's see, my main character and just figuring out who they are, because it's really important to go into your story, even if you don't know exactly what's gonna happen, to have a solid understanding of what the main character's problem is that's driving the whole story. And then I also personally like to do like an outline. I'm like that kind of planner where I'm a plotter planner. And so if you like to do that, awesome. But even if you don't like to do that, just having an idea of the overall where your story's going. Like if you can sum it up in 3 sentences, this is what's starting it, this is the middle, this is the end, and you can kind of explain the arc of the story, I think that can be super helpful so that you know where you're going. I actually have an entire video on having a plan, so I don't want to repeat myself anymore for you guys because you can go into the description box below to watch that video. But I just really think this is important because if you know where you're going, you're way more likely to get there. I can pretty much guarantee you that like 99% of the people who win NaNoWriMo, I don't mean people who participate, I mean the people who have won NaNoWriMo in the past have had a plan, because the entire NaNoWriMo website is pretty much dedicated to helping you do exactly that. Take advantage of that. Go update your info on the site so that you know exactly what your goals are and how much it's going to take you to get there, and use their word trackers throughout the month. It's going to be so helpful, and I have more on this in a second. My second tip is actually to have a writing routine, because just like any other routine, you can actually train your brain to get into the writing zone faster. So you might be like, oh, you know, it takes me kind of an hour to get in the mood to write and get in the zone, and then I just kind of sit there on my computer and I look at Pinterest. Well, it can actually help to set up little routines that kind of trick your brain to think, okay, it's time to write. It's time to get going. And it is amazing, you guys, how helpful this is. I do have a whole video on writing routines, surprise, surprise, in that playlist I mentioned below. So I'm not gonna go super in depth on this because again, you can watch that and find out more. But I've really come to love and appreciate my writing routine because it gets me into the writing zone like that. I can sit down, do a couple of these things, and I am in the mood to write. And it's amazing how helpful it is and how much it's helped my writing and helped me be faster, and also helped my word count be higher, because if you only have like an hour and you spend, you know, over half of that trying to get in the mood to write and get in that brain space, then you've wasted that half hour, whereas you could just jump right into it. But I wanted to share a couple of the things that I've added to my routine over time, and you can add things, you know, one at a time and see what works for you and just try things and pick your own things. But here are a few things that I like to do. I really love to write at home, and I like to be in a comfy chair or on the couch. I really love to light a candle because I feel like that sets the mood for me more than anything else. I also have started to really love turning on my playlist on Spotify with a very specific set of songs that all trigger that feeling of it's time to write. Another thing I really like to do at the start of all my writing sessions, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a second, is I like to have a notebook where I write out exactly where I want the scene to go, and I kind of bullet point it like, this is gonna happen, maybe this dialogue, this character should be there, just kind of like brain dumping everything that I want to be in that scene. And that can also help me to visualize the scene before I start writing it. You don't have to do any of these things, but the point is to basically put some triggers in your brain that kind of instantly flip the switch, and you're in writing mode and you're ready to go and you're starting to write right when you sit down. That's the goal here. Some of you might be like, you know what, I've been writing a long time and I don't have a routine. I don't need that. But then you look at what you do most commonly, and you like to go to coffee shops and you like to get that espresso and you like to turn on that Harry Potter playlist, and baby, you got a routine. Or maybe you're like, I have to write in bed and I need silence, like nobody around, and I really like to have these particular snacks. That's also a routine. Again, I have a whole video on this, so go watch that if you want more detail. But when you are creating your routine, just try things and also think of sustainability. So make sure it's something that is a wise move. Like for example, I had a couple months where I ate ice cream every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. That was not good for the waistline. I would not recommend that particular routine. All right, quick disclaimer, if you are a patron in the Writerly care packages this month, turn off this video until you get your care package if you want to avoid a spoiler, because I'm about to show something that I sent out this month. My third tip is to write everything down. And I kind of hinted at this already a little bit, but there's so much more to it and so many different things that I track now and that I write down to help me both get in the zone and just figure out where I'm going. And so I have never done a video on this because it felt really intuitive to me, and it probably feels intuitive to a lot of you as well. It's just something we just do and we don't really think about it, but I think it helps to actually be aware of it and be even more intentional about doing this. What do I mean by everything? Well, I like to have a notebook where I keep things like my ideas and brainstorming. I also do that thing I talked about a second ago where I kind of bullet point the scene and figure out where I want it to go next. And so I will go chapter by chapter and kind of like plot things out. You can write down your outline and then you can re-outline over and over again. I found that it helps me to write down things that I want to edit later, because then it gets it out of my brain and I can keep moving forward and drafting the story, because I know I have a note on fixing that later and I don't have to worry about it right this second. I also really love to write down my plan, like we talked about earlier, and all the specifics to that and my goals and what I'm gonna do and daily checklists and all that kind of stuff, because statistically people are way more likely to actually meet their goals and go through with their plans if they write them down. I like to take notes on things that I'm learning from books that I've read, like novels, or on writing craft, or from the internet, or you name it. I like to take notes on everything. But most of all, I really love doing word count trackers and writing sprint trackers, because it really helps me to see how those little amounts of words add up. For example, here's a fun word tracker where you write in the little boxes each sprint and then you add it up at the end and you add up the daily total. And I have an example here of how little word sprints add up. And here's an example of a fun word tracker that I actually made specifically thinking of NaNoWriMo and then thinking of after NaNoWriMo, since a lot of novels are longer than 50K. I kind of gave it away there, but this is the novel writing planner that I designed. It's just a notebook that has tons of different trackers and fun things. I have a little page inside here that tells you what it's all about. And I really love, like I said, goals. So I even have a little one to color. I made them the way that I've done things in my bullet journal before, so that you can kind of color things in and write down your goals and color that in if you want. And then I have your big picture calendar. I have 2 months worth so that you can continue after NaNoWriMo. The tracker that I showed you guys before, so you can do NaNoWriMo and then you can continue writing until your novel's finished. I have an outline here that has 15 sections if you like to do Save the Cat Writes a Novel and use the beat sheet for that. Then I have a bunch of spreads for your week, and then it goes into your word sprint tracker. And these word sprint trackers, like I said, are probably one of my favorite things about this book. And then I included some coloring pages, all based on stuff I've done in my bullet journal, like this. So this is a cute little doodle when you're kind of like you need a break. And there's other doodles like this that I think are really fun. And then I have a little tiny chunk for characters and a re-outlining section, because I always have to re-outline, you guys. And then I have a bunch of checklists. So these are like your daily checklists, and there's 3 different designs. And then it ends, if I can do this right, with just your line pages, just like a probably this much. It's like a tiny chunk at the end, maybe 20 pages, that you could just write whatever you specifically need. It's pretty thick and it has this beautiful cover. If you guys have watched my other videos, then you know that this was my procrastination project. This is the project that I was scheming about so much when I was supposed to be editing the Ginny Key. I had this week at the end of September where I was having extreme procrastination. So I actually made this planner with NaNoWriMo in mind for myself. And then I got so excited about how it was being designed that I decided to make it a gift to my patrons in the Writerly Care package, like I mentioned. And then I had to publish it to do that, to order them. So I was like, screw it, I'm gonna make this available to everybody. So if you want to grab your own novel writing planner, I will link it in the description box below. Just for kicks, you guys, I actually made like 8 notebooks, and so I have them on my website, which I will also link below if you're curious to see the other notebooks. I have this novel writing planner, and then I have one with a cover like this. These are both pictures that I took from Instagram that I really love. So I have 2 novel planners, and then I actually have some notebooks like this that are just line pages, like if you want to write stuff down and you want to make your own content and you want a pretty cover like this. So I did make a novel writing planner with this cover because this is probably my favorite picture I've ever taken, and I did just a slightly different title so you can tell them apart. So this is your to-do list. It's just notebook pages, and then the planner one says planner on it, so you'll be able to tell them apart. But yeah, this is just a little bit thinner because I like when you can finish a notebook, if you know what I mean. So I always dedicate a notebook for each novel that I write, and I will like keep all of my information in that particular place. So this is what I'm gonna do going forward for myself, because I am a notebook fanatic. But if you guys have any like snarky sayings that you would enjoy seeing on a notebook, or something like that you feel whenever you sit down to write, let me know in the comments, because I would love to make more of these. These are really fun to make. Like I said at the start of this video, the 3 things that help me most is to have a plan, have a routine, and write everything down. So these notebooks are pretty much all 3 of those things in one, because this is where I write my plan, this is where I write everything else down, all my word trackers, all my ideas for characters and story, and it's become part of my routine. So it's literally everything I've talked about in this video summed up into one. If you're like me and you have a ton of notebooks lying around already, you can probably make this for yourself as well if you're interested. I just really encourage you guys to write everything down, because being able to see your improvement and your progress can be so motivating. Those are my 3 tips to winning Nano. And again, I do have a NaNoWriMo playlist below and the links to all the notebooks that I have below as well. So go check that out. I hope this video has helped you, and I hope that you win NaNoWriMo this year. Good luck, guys, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!